Hello and welcome to episode 88 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. We spent the last 3 episodes listening to Marisa from Chicago give her opinions, and sometimes her very critical opinions, revolving around the D23 Expo announcements for Walt Disney World. Today, Sarah Says is going to be here to turn the attention towards the West Coast. Disneyland is getting a lot of new stuff according to D23. I'm so excited to get to it, and Sarah's happy to be prying the other microphone away from Marisa finally. Before we get started, Saturday was October 1st, which marked the 40th anniversary of Epcot. You know I had to be on hand to check out the festivities. To be honest, a lot of the celebration was underwhelming from a big picture standpoint, but I still had an extremely fun time. The special Figment dessert sold out shortly after the park opened, and there were some communication issues as to when it would be made available. Because of that, I didn't have the chance to try it. There was a special ceremony at 11, but that was extremely limited in scope as well. With everything Disney does, of course, especially at Epcot, the merchandise line was unbelievably long, reaching up to 4 hours at points. So instead of dealing with any of the special offerings, we decided to focus on doing some of our favorite things at Epcot. We met Mickey, Vanellope, and Mulan. We rode Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, Living with the Land, and Frozen Ever After. When we left, we did get some special Epcot 40th anniversary posters, and I may consider giving away the poster and some maps sometime in the near future. To see our experience at Epcot for the 40th, you can check out 2 vlogs on the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube page. They originally aired on October 4th and 5th. Of course, October 1st also marked the beginning of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As most of you know by now, I walked Ireland's National Famine Way back in June to raise money and awareness for CASA of Pinellas County, Florida in the fight against domestic violence. We're going to wrap up the fundraiser on the 31st of this month, Halloween night. Please, if you have been waiting to donate, consider giving $20 right now at casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/ that's casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/. We have grown this community so much over the last 88 episodes, and we will continue to do that in different ways starting next month. Let's wrap up this first major effort to make some positive difference with a big push in the final weeks. It will come as no surprise to you that Hurricane Ian was no help to CASA. A lot of people are donating to different organizations in Florida in the aftermath of the storm. Don't forget about survivors of abuse. Help is needed more now than ever. Every Monday, starting back on August 1st, I have also debuted a new vlog from Ireland on the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube page. These videos have been some of the most popular things on the channel. We will continue to have new vlogs through the 31st, when we will debut the finale of the trail with a special episode that is over 1 hour long. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We not only have vlogs from Ireland, but we have videos from the theme parks on a regular basis as well. As I mentioned, this past weekend I visited Epcot for the 40th anniversary of my favorite Walt Disney World theme park. Check out that vlog on YouTube by searching Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Now it's time to welcome my good friend Sarah Says back to the show. As always, thanks for being here, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be back. Thank you.
I am happy that we are getting some big news about Disneyland Resort. Recently at the D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, the Walt Disney Company disappointed a lot of Walt Disney World fans, but I think they have thrilled those of you who spend most of your time on the West Coast going to the Disney theme parks. So we are going to talk about a lot of really big announcements coming to Disneyland.
So exciting. Yes, I know for me being the diehard Disneylander versus Disney Worlder, I was thrilled at so much of the stuff that's coming to Disneyland. Finally, it is our turn.
When I recorded the Walt Disney World version with our other co-host, Marisa from Chicago, we started with what we are getting at Walt Disney World because I thought we would start positive, but even talking about what we were getting ended up being kind of negative. She is very opinionated. Go back and listen to those episodes. But for us, since Disneyland is getting so much, we're going to start with the announcements that didn't happen. It's like in jazz. You have to listen to the notes they don't play. So we're going to talk first about what we didn't get. And I think this is the most glaring omission from the D23 Expo when it comes to Disneyland. And that's information on Disneyland Forward. I didn't expect to get it because it was still very blue sky in the first place, but they didn't address it at all. Do we still think they're moving forward, pun intended, I guess, with Disneyland Forward?
I don't know. I've gone back and forth with this one in my head that I don't know. And part of me wonders, did they not bring it because it was so like blue sky about it that they didn't, because they know that with how rabid things are on social media, that people would automatically just start going like, oh, it's going to be this, and immediately throwing it in there, where instead of just not doing anything about it, it's like, okay, great, now we can all speculate, but we don't have stuff to be like, oh, this is fact, even though it's not. So I don't know. I'm really like on the fence about this one. I have no idea.
That's so funny because I would have agreed with you if it wasn't for all of the blue sky artwork they gave us for Walt Disney World. True. Who knows? If anybody doesn't know the Disneyland Forward project, it is a really, really big project if it does ever come into fruition, where they stretch both of the theme parks, Disneyland Park and Disney's California Adventure, essentially across the street. So they're expanding a lot on both of these theme parks to try to give them new lands and even like a new downtown Disney Springs type area. It is incredibly ambitious, but it doesn't look like it's happening anytime in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. Or, they didn't want to announce it because, they have all the pictures and whatnot for like Disney World, because then when it doesn't happen, people aren't going to lose their mind.
Absolutely. So another thing we didn't get, which was kind of going around the rumor mill, and that was a frozen land, or at least a frozen ride to go around the Matterhorn or behind the Matterhorn. I thought we were going to get something frozen going into Disneyland. I honestly thought this was one that was going to happen.
And I still think at some point we will, but because of such little space that Disneyland has, unless you get rid of like Autopia and
please get rid of Autopia. Please get rid of Autopia.
Right? No kidding. Or so then put it in that area and expand Fantasyland back around so it kind of touches Tomorrowland that way. But it makes me wonder too, is it something, okay, maybe the next D23, who knows, whatever, they'll talk about it and they're just going to focus on Princess and the Frog right now. So I don't know. I really hope we do, because I've heard great things about, even though the people who are like the Maelstrom fanatics, I've still heard great things about the one in Epcot. So I was like, I kind of want a frozen ride.
And all of the international parks seem to be getting frozen lands or frozen rides. And it just seemed like Disneyland would get one. It'll be weird if they just make Disneyland the one park that really doesn't have a lot of frozen in it. But we did touch on Tomorrowland, and there needs to be something that happens in Tomorrowland, because Disneyland's Tomorrowland is even more of a mess than Walt Disney World's Tomorrowland, which is also a mess. We thought, or maybe it was just wishful thinking, maybe we were being too Pollyannish, there were a lot of reliable rumors that the People Mover was going to be returning to Disneyland, but that was not announced, and they didn't touch on anything regarding Tomorrowland.
I know we talked a lot about that, because I'm very much on the camp, like I would love to have the People Mover back, but I just feel the track is so destroyed that maybe it's another thing like the Disney Forward stuff, that if it's just that bad and they're like, we're going to bring it back, and they're like, just kidding, we'd have to tear down all of Tomorrowland to rebuild this, and it's not going to happen in your lifetime. So I'm like, I'm sitting here going, is that why they didn't say it? Because it's like, oh, because the rocket rods just destroyed not only the track, but the structure. So it's like, God, they have to literally would have to like close half of Tomorrowland at a time. It's like in Seattle, if you're from Seattle, hi everyone. All the freeway work they're doing where they have to close it forever. It's like, is that why? At this point, they could bring the Sky Ride back, I feel like, before they could bring back the People Mover. But I want the People Mover back. That is one of my absolute favorite rides at Walt Disney World is the People Mover. So come on, let's do this.
And I'm just going to go on the record as saying I think they do need to just tear down Tomorrowland and start over. Find some way to get a path back to Space Mountain.
That's fair. That's fair. And your guys' Space Mountain is in a really weird spot. Like compared to our Space Mountain, I feel like you really have to take quite the jaunt to get to Space Mountain in Walt Disney World versus us. You just kind of go and turn.
Yeah, our Space Mountain is pretty far back. So the former location of Tarzan's Treehouse, they are literally working on this right now. This is under construction right now, and we haven't heard what's coming in there.
I'm excited to hear what's coming in. I mean, I've been through Swiss Family Treehouse. I remember going as a kid, Tarzan Treehouse. So yeah, I really want to know what is going in that treehouse.
And I have one more note for what we didn't get, but I'm going to address it later because it does relate to something we did get. So now we are going to move to the good stuff. We're going to move to the positives here. What we did get about Disneyland at the D23 Expo. This one is super exciting for me. I know you do not care whatsoever about it.
I know what you're about to talk about.
But Marisa and I were so excited about this. Run Disney is returning to Disneyland in 2024. I have on my notes here, best announcement ever, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Love it, exclamation point. I'm going to bound as Mr. Toad, whatever the theme of the first Run Disney race is at Disneyland. But I'm thinking we could get some really, really cool themes on the West Coast. They could do Star Wars there since they've stopped doing Star Wars at Walt Disney World. They could do Marvel because they don't have to worry about the Universal agreement. And a Marvel race that goes through Avengers Campus would be next level. That would be so good.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I am really excited about this. I didn't get into Run Disney until it was already a Walt Disney World exclusive thing. And I could just imagine running past Mr. Toad dressed as Mr. Toad. It would be so good.
Yeah, I remember back when they did do the Run Disney races because I was still kind of running then before my knees just were like, I'm absolutely done. And I know my sister is going to be thrilled. So my sister runs and her goal is she wanted to get to the point that she could have the stamina to run and do a Walt Disney World race. But the thing too is that the cost for us to go over there, but now we can do it closer to home and for half the price. So it's like, yeah. So I know she's going to be super stoked. And when they did the Run Disney races years ago before they stopped it, they had some really cool ones like the Dark and the Light Side runs for Star Wars, and but the Marvel one, that would just be like awesome. That would be amazing. I would totally go down and root for you guys. Like when you and Marisa go, I would be saving my pennies so I can go and root for you guys. Like that's my biggest thing is I want to go to a race and just hold a sign that's like worst parade ever and wait for you guys to run by.
So something else to make Walt Disney World fans jealous. This one hit. This one hit like right in the gut that you guys are getting this and we're not. I mean, I am definitely going to be going to Disneyland very soon to experience some of this stuff. And this one's happening very soon, starting at least by November. The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda meet and greet coming to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. A lot of people are saying that walk-around characters, you just can't trust Walt Disney World to handle them appropriately. I guess that makes sense, but I am so jealous that Mando and Grogu are going to be walking around Batuu West.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. I did not realize it was not going to be in both parks. I thought it was going to be in both parks. And also, I was literally like screaming when I saw him during D23 lift up on his satchel and Grogu was in there. I was like screaming. I was so excited. And my son's looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, look, we get Mando and Baby Yoda. But at the time, I also thought you guys were getting it too. So
I wish this was at least coming to Star Wars Launch Bay. I don't know what this means to the timeline of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because now on the West Coast, you have Fennec Shand and Boba Fett, which would imply that they're moving a little earlier in the timeline. And then now with Mandalorian and Grogu, that's moving to that time period again right after Return of the Jedi, when the original theming of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is that it's taking place in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. It'll be interesting to see how this continues. Do they eventually just scrap the timeline and we get Han and Leia and we get
so cool.
Luke? And this is something we have discussed a number of times on the podcast for both coasts, but it looks like they might be inching towards that.
If I could meet like legit Yoda, I would stand in line for like 5 hours to meet Yoda. Like they should bring him and Luke can carry him on his back. And it would be amazing and wonderful. And oh, that would be so cool. I wonder too, with the Mandalorian thing, because of how intricate the costume and everything is, and with Grogu, if they're testing it out in Disneyland first, and then if it works out and they don't have a bunch of people like grabbing at baby poor Grogu, and then they like bring it over to Disney World after, they're just using us as like the testing facility. So I'll be interested to see what they do. I'm really interested to see where they go with this.
When we were talking about the Walt Disney World announcements and non-announcements from D23, I said to Marisa that there are certain things where Walt Disney World doesn't have the muscle memory anymore. We don't know how to do these things anymore, like walk around characters. And I said the same thing about the Main Street Electrical Parade. I don't know if a nighttime parade works at Magic Kingdom anymore. Just because Walt Disney World has turned into this conveyor belt assembly line style vacation that isn't as organic as a Disneyland vacation. So things like walk around characters don't work because everybody has to have that picture with the character when they go to Walt Disney World. They need to actually stand there and have their picture taken with Elsa. They have to stand there and have their picture taken with Anna. They didn't pay that much money to not get the Instagram pictures. And I think that's sort of the problem with this Mandalorian Baby Yoda meet and greet not coming to Walt Disney World, because they don't have the muscle memory for walk around characters, because it's been so long since we've had walk around characters here on the East Coast.
Yeah, for sure. I totally can see that. It's a whole different ball game when you're at Walt Disney World versus at Disneyland. It's very different, and the amount of people there is very different than one versus the other, because of course Walt Disney World the capacity can hold that many more people, where Disneyland, it's like the little brother. Even though it's the older sibling, it technically is like the little one.
At the end of this episode, or at the end of this conversation, we're going to get into my overall thesis to come out of these D23 Expo announcements. And my overall thesis definitely relates to what you just said, but I want to save that for the end of the episode, because I think they are moving Disneyland in a unique direction.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on to an announcement that really caught me off guard, but I think I'm pleasantly surprised. San Francisco from Big Hero 6 is coming to the location currently known as Pacific Wharf in Disney's California Adventure. My initial thought is that I didn't really think that Disney had this much faith in that IP, that particular intellectual property. you don't see a lot of Big Hero 6 throughout the parks, but apparently they have a lot of confidence in it. I know there was a Disney Plus show recently featuring Baymax. That must have done really, really well to convince them that this is going to work. What do you think about San Francisco coming to DCA?
I am really excited for this. I feel that Big Hero 6 has a very big cult following. It is unfortunately one of those movies that it's fantastic. And the show on Disney Plus, like you said, it must have done really well. I've seen a few of them, but it's not really in my son's wheelhouse right now, what he wants to watch. So I think that finally Disney is putting an IP in the parks that a lot of people who normally were like meh about are now like, yes, oh my gosh, this is my favorite movie. This is my favorite Disney Plus show right now. This is something that people really, really love. And it's not getting, previously it hasn't gotten a lot of love and attention. I mean, occasionally in some places you'd see Baymax would come out and things like that. It's adding a piece to California Adventure. Like I feel like putting it in California Adventure is like the perfect place for it as well, because of course it's called San Francisco. So, but it's adding something new there as well that isn't just Pixar. It's not just part of the Pixar land, you know? So I think it's great. And talking to a friend of mine who really loves that movie, she and I were talking about it at recess the other day, and we both agree we're really hoping it's going to bring in a lot of really good Japanese food.
And just to be clear, Sarah isn't still in school. She's talking about her son's
my son.
recess. She wasn't like, oh, I was talking about it at recess. And
yeah, sorry everyone. I go to school with my son. So it's
she wasn't so, like, yeah, do you like Big Hero 6 Land? Check yes or no. Like
it's like that Adam Sandler movie where they send him back and he has to do all the grades again. That's me.
What an odd reference that we just made to Billy Madison on a Disney podcast. So now I'm going to get into one of the announcements that's just a little blah, but you might have some opinions about it. There are 2 new restaurants coming to downtown Disney, Porto's Bakery and Cafe and Din Tai Fung.
Din Tai Fung is actually a Michelin star rated restaurant, and they're all over the country, and it's dumplings, soup dumplings, xiaolong bao. And it is actually one of my son's favorite restaurants ever. He'll eat an entire thing of dumplings to himself, but they have these garlic green beans. Oh my gosh, Din Tai Fung, very expensive, which means at Disney, it's going to be very expensive. But their food is amazing. It's amazing. I have never had anything there that I did not like.
It's so funny how I can be like, well, this is just a nothing announcement. Who really cares? And then I tell Sarah about it and she's so excited. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about the podcast that we have built, that I will think something is like, who cares? And you'll be so excited, or maybe Marissa's so excited or angry or whatever. But I didn't think this was going to be a big deal, and your face just lit up when I started talking about it. So that's a good thing.
Good. Yeah, it is so good. So if y'all don't go at Disney, find Din Tai Fung wherever you live. Go for a special night out or something. We used to go for lunch all the time before the prices went way up because of COVID. But it is so good. So good. I don't know about that other restaurant though, so it'll be fun to try, but I have no idea anything about that one.
So we finally got the concept art for a finished Toontown with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. It's going to be opening in 2023. Also, there was a sign in the concept art, not a picture or anything like that, not an image, but a sign for Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster. So hopefully that means that the Gadget Go Coaster is staying, or maybe it's getting an updated name or an updated theme. But I really think that is an important ride to have in Toontown. It's like a kid's first roller coaster.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Barnstormer in Walt Disney World. I know that's like a big one. You know, kids, unless you're kids like my kid, who we were just at the fair and he decided he wanted to go on the biggest ride ever. And I was like, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Gadget Go Coaster, which will be Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster, is a good one because it's small, it's short. So it's good. And it has just enough thrill for a young child who's maybe not ready to hit like Big Thunder Mountain yet. I'm not going to lie, though, I am a little disappointed as a millennial that they're taking the Gadget, as in Gadget the mouse, off of it. But I also understand that when it was built, it was in the time that Chippendale Rescue Rangers was huge, and Gadget was a huge part of that show, where now she is not. So most kids don't know who Gadget is unless they've watched the old Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
Couple thoughts. One, this is just concept art, so it might still be Gadget's Go Coaster, and they're just calling it Chippendale's Gadget Coaster to stay vague. But I know you're boycotting the new Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie, but remember, a lot of kids have seen it. So Gadget might be a character that they know after having seen that movie and then maybe going back and watching the show. And you're a parent, and there probably are a ton of parents who listen to this podcast. If you are not sitting your children in front of Chippendale Rescue Rangers and forcing their eyes open and making sure this gets into their brain, you're not doing your job as a parent. I'm
You know what,
just
that's fair.
kidding,
And
obviously. I am just
well,
kidding.
my son
I'm not
watched
mommy
it.
shaming.
My son has watched it, and he picked it out on his own when it popped up on Disney Plus. He's like, I want to watch that one because he loves Chippendale. So when Rescue Rangers popped up, and of course I'm singing along to the theme song, and he's looking at me like, how do you know this? So much attitude in such a tiny little body.
How do I know this? In the 90s, there was Smells Like Teen Spirit and then the Rescue Rangers theme song. Those were like the two songs that changed society at the time.
Right?
I'm just going to go on a little side tangent here, getting back to Walt Disney World. Last month, we did Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party at Magic Kingdom, and we saw two guys who both went as Dale from Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. Like, we saw a couple groups of guys where one of them went as Chip and one of them went as Dale. And I just have to know the conversation that went into them both just being like, you know what? Forget it. We're both going to be Dale. Like, there had to be a fight, because there comes a time in every friendship between two males when one of you realizes that you're the Chip and the other one realizes they're the Dale. And I don't think either one of them were ready to admit that one of them was the boring Chip in that friendship. So they just both came as Dale for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. Just a little side note there to bring some levity to the show. Right.
They get out of the car in the Lime garage, and they're standing there, and they're like, I thought you were dressing as Dale. I thought you were
Wait, am I the Chip? I don't understand.
What? I thought it's when you show up to prom dressed in the same dress as somebody else.
I hate when that happens. Anyway, we're going to move on now to the Paradise Pier Hotel is becoming the Pixar Place Hotel. We've known this for a while. We got a little bit of the concept art, and they have already ripped those waves off of the hotel like a couple days after they made the announcement. What do we think about this, Sarah?
So I've stayed at the Paradise Pier Hotel. It's great. It was very beachy themed, whatever. It's a hotel. I am really excited for it to be the Pixar Hotel. And I'm interested to see what they do with it. I'm not going to lie. And those of you who follow me on Twitter have known that since they announced this, that I stated I will be very disappointed if they don't have random announcements throughout the hotel of Andy's mom yelling at him to do different things, like pick up your toys and things like that, because you're in a Pixar toy, like it's all toys in the hotel, right? So in my theory, in my opinion, Andy's mom needs to pop up and be like, I thought I told you to pick that up.
Between 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. though, Disney. Yeah. Between 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. Yes. Not any later than that, please.
At like 2 a.m. Why are you awake? Go back to bed. But no, I'm excited. And I think would be kind of cool is if they did like each level is a different theme of a Pixar movie of like, so on this level, you're going to be Toy Story. On this level, you're going to be Monsters, Inc. So I think there's a lot more that they can now do with that hotel than they could as Paradise Pier. There's a lot more fun stuff they could incorporate.
Initially, I got really excited about your idea of each level being a different Pixar movie, but I know like all the other times they will forget that Brave is a Pixar movie because it
Yeah.
feels like Brave should be, oh, if they're talking about princesses, you should get Merida. And if they're talking about Pixar movies, you should get Brave. But it seems like they just skip it in both scenarios. And that is really frustrating to me. There's also, I believe, going to be a new entrance so you can go right into California Adventure, which would be a big deal.
That would be amazing because it is a walk to get from Paradise Pier to the parks. It is a walk.
That is where we're going to leave things off for episode 88 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Like, subscribe, and comment on the YouTube channel to really help us continue to grow. Please consider donating to CASA of Pinellas County, Florida in the fight against domestic violence at casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/ Sarah says we'll be back next Thursday to continue this conversation about the Disneyland announcements from last month's D23 Expo. Until then, have a great week.